So hi everyone, so today I wanted to just do a follow-up to my video from the other day where I put the E-M1 Mark II against the E-M10 Mark II with their respective lenses, the 14-42 kit lens on the E-M10, the 12-40 Pro on the E-M1. And some of the feedback I got was that the E-M1 Mark II looked definitely sharper. And I have to agree with that, because even though YouTube mitigates some of that sharpness that you would see when you're looking at it, say, straight out of camera on your computer, you could still tell the E-M1 Mark II is sharper. And then also there were color differences, right, that I was able to correct for the most part. So today what I'm doing is I swapped the lenses. I put the Pro lens on the E-M10 and I put the kit lens on the E-M1. So let's see if the E-M1, if you can tell, is still sharper than the E-M10, even though the E-M10 has the Pro lens on it. And then also let's see if the autofocusing is any better when I put a Pro lens on the E-M10. I would suspect that it should be a little better or a little bit faster. But I think in practice and real life, and I'm going to walk in and out of frame obviously, it's not going to be that much different, I don't think. When I go back into the house, we'll talk about it a little more. But I just wanted to kind of get an idea of how it's focusing, because that kind of leads me to my next thing I wanted to talk about, and that is, should you upgrade to the 12-40 Pro lens if you have an E-M10 Mark II? Because if you got the E-M1, you most likely got this lens. And I'm going to give you the same caveats basically I did when I talked about upgrading cameras in the last video. You really don't need to get this Pro lens, with this exception, if you're doing video. And the reason being, and it's not because I think it's going to focus any faster or any better on the E-M10. It may be a little bit, but mainly it's because of the fixed aperture of f2.8 when you're from 12 millimeters out to 40 millimeters. Because on the kit lens, you go from 3.5 to 5.6 when you zoom from 14 millimeters out to 42 millimeters. And when you're doing video, and I'll give you a scenario, I'm recording a lecture in a classroom, and I shoot in manual, okay? I set the ISO, I set the white balance, I set the aperture, and I set the shutter speed and frame rate for video, and that's all fixed, right? And then I need to move to a different spot in the classroom and reframe the picture via the zoom. I don't have to change any of the exposure settings if the aperture is fixed. I can leave everything exactly the same. So that's a huge thing, right? Because if you're trying to zoom in and out with the kit lens and you're in full manual, the aperture is going to change on you, hence the exposure. So it's going to get darker or lighter than what you originally had set. And when you're doing professional video work, that's a problem. You don't want that, right? So I think if you're doing video, you may want to consider the Pro lens if you think you're going to be in that kind of scenario. Because even with auto ISO, automatically adjusting, let's say you go into auto ISO, right, with manual, sometimes you still see a little bit of stepping between exposures. You see that kind of fluctuation. So if you really want to do pro work, you want to eliminate as many variables as you can. And having a fixed aperture throughout the zoom range lets you do that. But for just, for yourself, if you're just taking pictures of some family events or, vacation trips and stuff like that, yeah, just use auto ISO. And it'll adjust while you're zooming in and out, and it's not a big deal, right? It's not for professional work. But what about like for photography, right? Is the 12-40 Pro lens really that much sharper? And I think I demonstrated this pretty well when I was comparing the 40-150 kit lens, right? The f4 to something, the little plastic one that's $99, against my premium lenses, right? My 75 millimeter and my 12-40 Pro lens. And I was able to demonstrate that 40-150 lens is pretty awesome. And with just a little bit of tweaking in post-processing, you can pretty much get the same exact image out of that 40-150 lens as you can from any of the pro lenses. So I think I'm gonna experience the same thing here. So what I did is I did kind of the same thing. I set up my my flash and just did a couple of self-portraits using the pro lens and the kit lens on the E-M10, and we'll do a comparison. So it's really starting to pour rain here, so I'm gonna take everything indoors here and we'll look at these pictures and compare them side by side, and then I'll wrap it up. Alright, so we're inside now from the rain, and here are the two pictures I took using my off-camera flash. I set the exposures the same, 1/80th of a second f 5.6, ISO 200, both at 40 millimeters. And on the left we have the 14-42 kit lens, as you can see from the EXIF data, and on the right here the 12-40 Pro lens at 40 millimeters. And you know, just looking at these straight on, there's really not much difference, if any. You cannot tell at first glance that one is a pro lens, $700, and one is the kit lens that came with your camera. But let's take a look closer right here at the hairline, or lack thereof. You can see the pro lens is definitely sharper, and this is not because I missed focus. This is definitely, no matter where I go in the frame, the pro lens is sharper. But it's very easy to fix this in post-processing so that you would not be able to tell the difference. Another area where the pro lens does a better job is here in the background. You can see how busy this blurry background is compared to the pro lens. And up here in the trees, you can see that the bokeh here is very soap bubble like. And you can see how much smoother the pro lens is on the bokeh. Again, something very, very easily fixed in post-processing, and just about any software out there can do this. So let me just go ahead and just do a quick edit here. All I have to do is, and I zeroed both of these, all I have to do is add, just say, a medium sharpening. Now let's zoom in. And if I were to ask you which was the pro lens, which was the kit lens, you'd probably pick the pro lens on the left now, because it actually looks a little sharper. Okay, let's go down here to my corner of my mouth here. And again, I think the one, you know, definitely the kit lens looks sharper now with just that one little tweak. But the side effect is the bokeh now, all this blurry background is sharper now, so the busyness is even worse. But this also is very easily corrected. So all I have to do is go into Develop Module, and we'll just add something about like this. And all I have to do is crank the sharpness down, turn the noise reduction up to that, and I'm done. Now let's compare these two. Let's go back to the hairline. I didn't touch the hairline, so this still looks relatively sharp. Over here in the corner, my skin is still sharp. But let's look at the bokeh down here. Now the bokeh down here is actually smoother than the pro lens. And my point here is really, if you just learn to use the software a little bit, you can pretty much duplicate the pro lens results on your E-M10 Mark II. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and hopefully I was able to show that the 14-42 kit lens is an awesome lens, and you can get virtually the same results as this 12-40 Pro lens. You know, in my opinion, it's not worth spending the extra $700 for that lens unless you're a professional. You know, because that constant f2.8 aperture, the weather sealing, the build quality, it is faster and continuous autofocus. You know, no question, it's a great lens if you're a professional, because all of these things save time in the field, in your workflow. you know, back at home or office, post-processing, you know, because time is money and we need to save time as professionals, and this lens helps us do that. But as the average person or enthusiast, you know, I don't see any reason to spend this kind of money on this lens just for that tiny bit of difference that can be fixed in about 30 seconds in post-processing. And I pulled up this page here. I did a search, Olympus 12-40 Pro versus, and I left that blank because I wanted to see what was out there that might be helpful. And to make a point that all of these reviews, they're great reviews. I love Red35, I love Darren Miles. I mean, they have great channels. You should subscribe. They did great reviews on this lens. But these reviews in of themselves are not very helpful, you know, because to the average person, because you need to compare this lens to what you already have and then decide, you know, if it's worth spending that $700. Now maybe after watching my review you've decided, yeah, I think it's worth it, and that's fine. That's why I do these, you know. I want to help you make the right decision before you drop that kind of dough on a lens that's only, in my opinion, just a tiny bit better and not really worth $700 for the average person. I mean, look, I'm just scrolling down. Look at the rest of these. Here they're comparing the Panasonic versus the Olympus. And, you know, if you have a Panasonic body, you need to buy the Panasonic lens. If you have the Olympus body, you need to buy the Olympus lens, because I feel like half the firmware updates that we get from Olympus and Panasonic are because of compatibility issues between the different camera bodies and lenses and manufacturers. So, and you see it online, you know, thread after thread. You know, I bought the Panasonic lens, it's not very good on my Olympus body, and then people are saying, oh, I have great results with this, but I'm using a Panasonic, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, again, I don't see any reviews here that would be very helpful, and that's why I made this review. Is I want to help you make the right decision. Is, you know, this 12-40 Pro worth the extra $700? And in my opinion, it's not really for the average person. Alright, so if you have any questions, just leave them down below. If you'd like to see more videos like this where I'm doing these kind of comparisons, just let me know. Hit the subscribe button, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.